Bikers harass a farmer's daughter at a restaurant, unaware her father is a lethal ex-Marine. In the quiet town of Ironwood Ridge, a simple night at a local restaurant turns deadly when a ruthless biker gang crosses the wrong family. What they don't know is that the farmer's daughter they're harassing is protected by a father with a lethal past, a methodical, battle-hardened ex-Marine who's been waiting for this moment. This is not just a story of survival. It's a tactical chess match where every move counts, and one man's calm precision turns the tide against overwhelming odds. Before we dive in, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories reach. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss tomorrow's special video. I guarantee you won't want to miss it. Now let's jump in. In the quiet town of Ironwood Ridge, where the roads are long and the skies stretch forever, life moves at a different pace. The townsfolk know each other by name, and the local diner, Maggie's Place, is where stories pass, coffee pours, and peace hangs in the air like the sweet smell of fresh-baked pie. On a brisk Thursday morning, a black convoy of motorcycles rolled into town, their engines tearing through the silence like a warning shot. They called themselves the Grim Sons, a notorious biker gang known for extortion, violence, and leaving towns like this in ashes. To them, Ironwood Ridge was just another speck on the map, a stopover where they could stir trouble, collect debts, and remind people who really holds the power. They swaggered into Maggie's Place like they owned it. Leather jackets, silver rings, tattoos that crawled up their necks like battle scars. Their leader, Vince "Grim" Calder, carried the weight of fear wherever he went. Cold, calculating, and addicted to the sound of people begging. In a corner booth, Lena Thorne, a young woman with stubborn green eyes and a sharp tongue, sat quietly sipping her coffee, flipping through an old book. She wore jeans, a simple plaid shirt, and scuffed work boots. Nothing that screamed trouble. But trouble was about to find her. One of the bikers, Axel, sauntered over, smirking like a man who'd never been punched hard enough to rethink his life choices. His shadow loomed over her table. "You local, sweetheart?" he asked, voice slick with mock charm. Lena didn't look up. "Born and raised. Why don't you put that book down and come entertain us for a while?" He grinned, gesturing toward his gang. She closed the book carefully. "Not interested." Axel leaned in, lowering his voice but sharpening the threat. "See, I wasn't really asking." The diner went silent. The other patrons froze, their eyes flicking nervously between the bikers and the girl who apparently didn't know when to back down. Lena's reply was steady, her words a quiet warning wrapped in local wisdom. "You're picking the wrong place and the wrong person." Vince Grim watched from the bar, amused. "What's she gonna do? Call her daddy?" At that, Lena's lips curved into a small, knowing smile. "You could say that." What the Grim Sons didn't know was that Lena's father was Jack Thorne, a retired Marine Force recon legend. 30 years of black ops, hostage rescues, and surgical strikes that don't make the news. To most in Ironwood Ridge, he was just the quiet farmer living on the edge of town. To those who wore the uniform, he was a ghost story, a man who turned chaos into calculation and made war his craft. And the moment Axel laid a hand on Lena's arm, the chessboard was set. Without a flicker of panic, Lena muttered for words under her breath. A private code between her and her father. "Papa, storm's coming." Across town, Jack Thorne set down his coffee mug, the burner phone on his kitchen table buzzing once. No number, no words, just a signal. His eyes hardened. The time for planting was over. It was time for war. Jack Thorne moved like a man with a mission carved into his bones. His farm was quiet, the air heavy with the scent of soil and machine oil. To anyone else, it was an aging ranch, weathered and worn. But buried beneath the rows of corn and hay bales, hidden behind false walls in the tool sheds, was something far more dangerous. A personal armory, a tactical operations hub, and decades of prepared contingency plans. He didn't rush. Jack Thorne never rushed. He opened the old wooden cabinet near the back of his barn. Behind the farm tools, he tapped twice against a hollow panel. It clicked open to reveal a steel locker. Inside, neatly organized, were his weapons: an M4 carbine with custom attachments, a SIG sour sidearm, combat knives, non-lethal flashbangs, communication headsets, and most importantly, a battered tactical vest with his name still stitched into it. Jack ran his fingers across the patch. "Force Recon." Ghost company. It had been years since he put this on, but the weight was familiar, comforting even. On a nearby wall hung a folded, detailed map of Ironwood Ridge. The diner was circled in red. Jack's mind immediately began to plot. Tactical advantage assessment. Grimm's sons. Estimated force of 8 to 10 members. Terrain, urban proximity, tight streets, civilian presence. Objective, extraction of Lena, neutralization of threat, minimal collateral. Jack's fingers traced routes, choke points, and alleyways. The diner had 2 main exits, both within line of sight from adjacent rooftops. Nearby, an old construction yard offered a discreet entry point. He picked up his radio headset and pressed the call button on a secure frequency. A familiar voice crackled through. Caleb Grant, former recon sniper, now local mechanic, and Jack's trusted friend. You called in the storm, Jack? Grimm's sons. They've got Lena cornered at Maggie's. There was no hesitation. You want Overwatch? High Point East Side. Get eyes on. I'll handle the ground. Non-lethal unless escalation dictates otherwise. Caleb's smirk was audible through the line. Just like old times. Jack packed light, but precise. Flashbangs, a smoke canister, zip ties for fast restraints, and a compact drone for visual recon. His movements were methodical, his breathing calm. This wasn't rage. This was the cold, efficient rhythm of a man switching from farmer to operator. On his way out, he passed the picture of his late wife. He paused for a beat, pressing his hand gently against the frame. I've got her, Sarah. I always will. Mounting his old dirt bike, Jack kicked it to life and raced down the gravel path toward town, dust clouds rising in his wake. Meanwhile, back at Maggie's, the tension thickened. Axel had grown impatient. He gripped Lena's wrist tighter, leaning in close. I don't like games, sweetheart. Lena's eyes remained steady. Neither does my father. The other bikers laughed, their boots thudding against the diner's wooden floor as they closed in. Vince Grimm's curiosity was piqued, but he didn't see the threat yet. To him, Jack Thorne was just another gray-haired farmer with calloused hands and bad knees. That illusion wouldn't last much longer. Outside, Jack's drone hovered silently, feeding live video to his wrist display. He marked their positions, measured distances, calculated responses. The chessboard was his now. Jack Thorne wasn't coming to fight fair. He was coming to end it. Jack Thorne parked his dirt bike 2 blocks away from Maggie's place, choosing a shadowed alley out of camera range. He moved quickly, using back streets, dumpsters, and the thin blind spots between buildings. His years of tactical insertion weren't lost to age. They were muscle memory. The live drone feed confirmed his initial assessment. Grimm's men were spread out in a loose formation, some near the diner's entrance, others by their bikes, 2 standing guard in the rear alley. Vince Grimm himself leaned casually against the counter inside, toying with a toothpick, oblivious to the storm building around him. Jack's voice was low, crisp over the comms. Caleb, status. Caleb's reply came smooth and measured. Set on the east rooftop, 300 meters out. I've got clear visuals on 5 targets outside. 2 flanking the back alley, 3 near the bikes. I count 4 more inside. Priority is Lena. Non-lethal on exterior unless they pull steel. Copy that. Ready on your green. Jack carefully unpacked a small case and assembled a homemade flashbang launcher rigged from old farm equipment, a trick he perfected over the years. Makeshift, but effective. He positioned the launcher behind a dumpster aimed directly at the diner's rear entrance, where 2 of Grimm's men smoked and talked, unaware. His plan was clear. Phase 1, disrupt the rear guard. Phase 2, evacuate Lena. Phase 3, trap the remaining Grimm sons in controlled zones for capture or surrender. Jack's movements were exact. He set a timed ignition on the launcher, adjusted the drone's flight path to hover above the side entrance, and moved into position behind a delivery truck. His comm crackled. Tick-tock, Jack. Looks like one of them's starting to grab the girl. Jack's voice was ice. Phase 1. Go. Boom. The flashbang detonated with a sharp, disorienting blast, flooding the rear alley with light and sound. The 2 bikers collapsed, clutching their ears, dropping their weapons in panic. Simultaneously, Caleb's suppressed shots cracked through the air. 1, 2, non-lethal gel rounds, dropping 2 more bikers near the motorcycles before they could draw. Inside the diner, chaos erupted. The bikers jolted. Vince Grimm barked orders, but Jack was already moving. With tactical precision, Jack breached the side door, tossing a smoke canister into the room. Visibility dropped instantly. He navigated the diner's layout from memory, brushing past tables, weaving through the haze, until he reached Lena. "Papa," she breathed, eyes wide but calm. "Stay low, follow my lead." Axel lunged blindly through the smoke, swinging a chain. Jack sidestepped smoothly and drove his elbow into Axel's ribs, folding him with a clean, surgical blow. He grabbed Lena's wrist and moved swiftly toward the kitchen exit. Over the comm. "Caleb, cover our exfil." "Already on it." "Rear's clear." Two tangos still groaning on the ground. Jack shoved open the back door, shielding Lena as he guided her to the extraction point. One of Grimm's men appeared, gun drawn. Too slow. Jack's fist connected first, disarming him in a brutal, economical motion. He zip-tied the man's wrists in seconds. "Keep moving." They reached the dirt bike. Jack handed Lena a spare helmet. "Hold tight. We're repositioning." As they tore away from the scene, the fading sound of sirens hinted that the local deputies were already en route, called by Caleb minutes earlier under a pseudonym. Jack's traps were still active, and the Grimm sons were now scattered, leaderless, and blind. The opening move was complete, but Jack knew this wasn't over. The real fight was just beginning. Jack didn't slow until they reached an abandoned grain silo just outside of town, an old staging ground from his days in Force Recon, long since forgotten by anyone else. He parked the dirt bike behind a rusted steel container, ensuring the place remained out of sight from any curious eyes or drone surveillance. Lena pulled off her helmet, her hands steady despite the adrenaline still spiking through her system. "They won't let this go, will they?" Jack gave her a grim nod. "No. Grimm's the kind who doesn't take embarrassment lightly. You humiliated them. I hit them. They'll retaliate." "Good," she said, her voice sharp with resolve. Jack almost smiled. Almost. He activated a burner laptop, pulling up local traffic cams, drone feeds, and scanner intercepts. Caleb's voice crackled through the headset. "Local PD's detaining two of Grimm's men at the scene, but it's window dressing. Grimm bribed half the deputies years ago. He's not going anywhere." Jack's eyes narrowed as he studied Grimm's regrouping pattern. Several of the bikers were pulling back to their clubhouse, a fortified garage on the outskirts of Ironwood Ridge, where they stored weapons, bikes, and cash runs. "Caleb, I need eyes on the clubhouse. Grimm won't wait long to escalate." "Copy. I'll reposition." Lena folded her arms, leaning over the laptop screen. "What's the play, Papa?" Jack's fingers tapped against the keyboard as his mind assembled the pieces. "We can't wait for them to come here. Grimm will send more muscle, maybe even contract outside hitters. We hit first, control the chessboard." His plan took shape quickly. Phase 1. Sabotage their mobility. Take out their transport and block retreat routes. Phase 2. Disrupt their supply chain. Destroy weapon caches, intercept their comms. Phase 3. Force Grimm into a tactical kill zone, a controlled battlefield on Jack's terms. Jack glanced at Lena. "I'm going to need your help." "You sure? You always kept me out of this side of you. You're in it now, and I trust you." She nodded, focused. "What's my role?" "You'll handle recon and bait. Grimm's ego will chase you. I'll set the traps." Jack handed her a comm unit and a small, discreet GPS tracker. "If things go south, activate this. Caleb and I will track you within seconds." "Got it." Jack's voice sharpened. "We do this fast, clean, and by our rules. No civilians get hurt. No loose ends." Caleb's update came through. "I'm set on the ridge near the clubhouse. Their numbers doubled. Looks like Grimm called reinforcements." "Let him," Jack replied. "The more he brings, the more I can break." The first strike came at midnight. Jack infiltrated Grimm's garage using a series of underground storm drains he remembered from his years surveying the town's infrastructure, details most people would overlook. He planted remote charges beneath key support beams and slashed the fuel lines of every bike in the compound. On his way out, he left a message scorched into the garage wall with a thermite flare. "Storm's here." An hour later, a second supply depot erupted in flames on the outskirts, cutting off Grimm's ammunition stockpile. Each hit was surgical, controlled, and impossible to predict. Jack Thorne wasn't fighting for revenge. He was dismantling a network, piece by piece. By dawn, Grimm's resources were fractured. His men were restless. His grip on Ironwood Ridge was slipping. But Jack knew it wasn't enough. Grim would come personally now, and that was exactly what Jack wanted. By morning, the Grimm sons were in disarray. Half their bikes were ruined, their ammunition depots crippled, and their backdoor supply routes burned to the ground. Jack Thorne's message wasn't just a taunt, it was a tactical declaration. Grim, however, wasn't a man who backed down. He was a wolf in a corner now, and cornered animals bite hard. Caleb reported from his perch. Grim's not pulling out. He's digging in. Bringing in backup, he called a crew from the next county. Probably the Blackjacks, ex-biker enforcers with paramilitary experience. Let them come, Jack replied, cool and calculated. They'll just add more bodies to the trap. Jack and Lena regrouped at the silo, converting the location into a temporary command post. Maps were spread across a steel table, communication lines tapped, a small laptop streaming live drone footage of Grimm's clubhouse. The storm was building, and Jack was tightening the noose. Lena leaned over the table. If Grimm brings the Blackjacks, they'll come heavier, more firepower, more coordination. They won't scatter like the street-level muscle. Jack's eyes narrowed. That's the point. His plan adapted quickly. He sketched 2 concentric kill zones outside the Grimm clubhouse. Outer ring, mines disguised as loose gravel, set to disable incoming vehicles. Inner ring, barricades and choke points to funnel Grimm's forces into predetermined lanes. Fallback route, a nearby grain elevator offering Jack elevated cover and a quick escape if needed. This isn't just about Lena anymore, Caleb said over comms. You're dismantling his entire operation. Jack's response was cold and clinical. I'm correcting a mistake. The kind of mistake that leaves people thinking they can do whatever they want to quiet towns. Lena raised an eyebrow, her voice touched with sharp humor. Remind me not to get on your bad side, Papa. He allowed a faint smirk. You already did. That's why you're on my side now. They moved quickly. Lena worked her contacts around town, spreading whispers in places where Grimm's men would listen, suggesting that Jack was planning to flee, making himself bait. It was the kind of story Grimm would seize without thinking. Meanwhile, Jack and Caleb planted the charges and reinforced the kill zones with makeshift traps, tripwires, disabling spikes, and portable barricades that could be deployed remotely. Caleb's tactical input was invaluable. His overwatch position would cover the rear flanks, while Jack would engage directly. That evening, Grimm's trap was set. The biker leader had swallowed the bait, and his convoy roared out of their compound, hunting the ghost who'd been dismantling their empire piece by piece. Jack and Lena waited at the grain elevator on the outskirts, watching through binoculars as the headlights approached, the thunder of engines growing louder. Caleb's voice came over the line. Convoy in range. Looks like Grimm brought all his toys. Jack's tone was razor sharp. Let him bring them all. The more he brings, the less he takes home. As Grimm's convoy entered the outer ring, one of the bikes hit a disguised mine, detonating with a sharp, controlled explosion that tore the lead vehicle's tire apart. Bikers scrambled to reposition, some ditching their rides in panic. Jack activated the portable barricades, locking the convoy into narrow lanes. Funnel them. Box them in. Grimm barked orders, trying to regain control, but the kill zone was already doing the work for Jack. Jack's comm buzzed. Caleb, suppressing fire. Focus on rear flanks. Copy that. Let's box these sons of. Caleb's suppressed rifle barked from the tree lean, dropping 2 of Grimm's outriders trying to flank. Jack emerged from his cover, moving tactically, his M4 raised. He advanced through the kill zone with precision, firing controlled bursts at engines, tires, and weapons, disabling without unnecessary bloodshed. Lena, perched on overwatch with a scoped rifle, provided auxiliary cover. Her shots were steady, targeting fuel tanks and forcing bikers to abandon their positions. Grimm's convoy was crumbling in real time. But Vince Grimm wasn't running. Through the haze, he stood tall, his pistol drawn, eyes burning with rage. Jack locked eyes with him across the battlefield. Check. Grimm's next move would be his last. Smoke drifted through the broken lines of Grimm's convoy. Bikes smoldered, engines hissed, and scattered debris littered the kill zone. Jack Thorne advanced with methodical precision, his rifle steady, his breathing controlled. Across the distance, Vince Grimm stepped forward, pistol low, his posture more insulted than afraid. You must be the old man everyone keeps whispering about. Grim spat, sizing him up like he couldn't quite believe the rumors. Jack didn't answer. You've been a real pain, farmer, Grim growled, circling slowly. Blew up my garage, wrecked my rides, embarrassed my boys. You think that makes you some kind of hero? Jack's response was ice. I think it makes me your problem. Grim smirked, feigning confidence, but his eyes flicked over the damaged convoy. His empire had been cut to pieces in less than 48 hours by a man he'd written off as nothing. Grim raised his pistol. Let's end this. Man to man. Jack didn't move. You don't get to choose how this ends. At that moment, Caleb's voice crackled softly in Jack's ear. Got Grim's backup team pinned west side. They're not moving. Jack kept his rifle aimed center mass, his voice steady. Your options are limited. You can walk away now, Grim. You've got enough men left to rebuild. Somewhere else. Grim's laugh was bitter. You think I'm here to bargain? You hit my crew, burn my house. You put your little girl in the middle of this. I'm gonna bury both of you. Jack's eyes hardened. You touched her. That made this personal. Grim's finger twitched on the trigger, but Jack's shot came first, a controlled double tap that shattered the pistol from Grim's hand, sending it clattering to the dirt. Grim roared in frustration, clutching his bleeding hand. Jack advanced, switching to his sidearm with practiced speed. Try again, Jack said, his tone sharp enough to cut steel. Grim's remaining men hesitated, watching the legend they'd underestimated now standing inches from their leader, completely unfazed. Jack stepped closer. You've got two choices. Walk away and never come back. Or stay, and none of you leave upright. Grim seethed, but he wasn't suicidal. He glanced at his wounded crew, his burning convoy, and the cold, unmoving eyes of Jack Thorne. The weight of tactical defeat settled on his shoulders. You're making enemies you can't see coming, old man, Grim hissed. Jack's reply was cold. I've spent my life cleaning up men like you. Caleb's voice returned in Jack's ear. Local PD's on the way. Unbought ones this time. Jack tossed a set of zip ties at Grim's feet. Your choice. Grim signaled his men to lower their weapons. The fight was gone from them. Jack zip-tied Grim's wrists and stepped back as Caleb emerged from cover to assist with securing the remaining bikers. Lena appeared moments later, rifle slung over her shoulder. All this because you couldn't leave a girl in peace. Grim glared at her, but Jack's presence kept him quiet. As the sound of approaching sirens grew louder, Jack knew this battle was over. But war? That was never so simple. The sirens drew closer, blue and red lights flashing against the smoke-filled backdrop of the dismantled convoy. Jack Thorne holstered his sidearm and took a slow breath, grounding himself. The fight was over, but his mind remained sharp, cycling through contingency plans in case Grim had left any surprises. Caleb approached with a casual stride, though his rifle remained loosely cradled. You always had a flair for the dramatic, Jack. Wasn't the plan, Jack muttered, tightening the last set of restraints on Grim's lieutenant. But the plan's flexible. The deputies that arrived were the few Jack trusted, young, uncorrupted officers from out of town, men who'd known his reputation long before they'd ever stepped foot in Ironwood Ridge. Their sergeant, a broad-shouldered man named Collins, nodded with silent respect as his team began rounding up the bikers. We've been waiting for a window to shut these guys down for months, Collins said. Thanks for opening the door. Jack handed him a small drive. Evidence files, supply routes, bribe records. Courtesy of Grim's own comms network. Collins raised an eyebrow. You hacked his comms. Jack didn't answer. He simply gave a small shrug that said enough. Lena walked past them, pausing by Grim, who sat on the ground, wrists bound, his lip bleeding. You picked the wrong girl, she said flatly. Grim sneered. You think this is over? I've got friends. I've got reach. Jack's voice cut in, low and final. You don't have anything. Not here. Not anymore. Grim leaned forward as far as the zip ties would allow. One day, someone's gonna come who's not afraid of you. Jack's eyes were unreadable. That's what they all say, until they meet me. Collins's deputies loaded the bikers into transports, and as Grim was hauled away, he glanced back one last time at Jack, fury smoldering behind his bruises. Caleb smirked. You just made sure Grim's never coming back. Jack watched the departing vehicles for a long moment. Men like him always come back. But next time, they'll send someone smarter. Caleb's tone sharpened. You think he's got outside players? Jack nodded. He mentioned friends. That's not street-level talk. That's organized money. The tactical game wasn't over. It had simply advanced to a bigger board. Jack turned to Lena. We need to be ready. She folded her arms, determined. I'm in this now, right? No more keeping me in the dark. Jack placed a steady hand on her shoulder. You're in this. But I make the calls. And we fight smart. Deal. The town of Ironwood Ridge would sleep easier that night. But Jack knew peace was temporary. Old friends would need to be contacted, defenses would need to be reinforced, and his quiet farm would remain what it had always been, a fortress disguised as a home. Caleb clapped Jack on the back. Same time next week? You know, just to keep things interesting. Jack allowed himself the smallest grin. You bring the coffee. As the sun dipped below the ridge, Jack and Lena headed home, the dirt bike kicking up a trail of dust behind them. The storm had passed, but the sky was still heavy. In the days following the takedown of the Grimm sons, Ironwood Ridge returned to a cautious calm. The townspeople, long silent under the weight of Grimm's intimidation, began to breathe a little easier. Maggie's place reopened its doors. The local mechanic's shop, the post office, and the quiet farmers at the morning markets all slowly returned to their routines. But Jack Thorne didn't. He wasn't the kind of man to mistake a lull for safety. Inside his barn, Jack moved with the silent precision of a man assembling something permanent. He reinforced the underground armory, updated the escape tunnels, and installed a new perimeter alarm system that stretched beyond the tree line. His old tactical mind wouldn't let him rest. The fight with Grimm had exposed the town's vulnerabilities. More importantly, it exposed Jack's. Lena. He watched her from the doorway as she worked on her truck, sleeves rolled up, grease on her cheek, her focus steady. She'd changed. The girl who used to read by the window now studied maps and tactical manuals. Her curiosity sharpened into something much more dangerous. You think they'll come back? She asked, not looking up. They always come back, Jack answered, tightening a bolt on the reinforced gate. Grimm's gone, but his allies aren't. Someone will eventually come knocking. You going to keep me on the sidelines next time? Jack paused, then shook his head. You held your ground. You kept your head. You're in. Lena smiled, wiping her hands on a rag. Good. Because I already called Caleb. We've been working on layered surveillance grids. He's teaching me drone patterns. Jack's lips twitched in something resembling pride. You're learning faster than I did. That's because I had you, she said plainly. Later that evening, Caleb arrived with a portable terminal and a stack of encrypted files. He brought with him chatter, conversations intercepted from neighboring towns, whispers on black market channels. We stirred something, Jack, Caleb reported, pulling up a grainy photo on the terminal. It showed a man in a tailored suit, standing with known cartel enforcers. Name's Diego Serrano. He bankrolled a few of Grimm's runs. Real corporate mercenary type. He's got reach. Rumor is, Grimm was his pawn. Jack studied the image, memorizing the face. So the real game's starting. Looks like it. Serrano's been expanding west. Logistics hubs, laundering fronts. He's going to want to know why his asset disappeared so quickly. Jack's tactical mind spun through possibilities. Serrano wouldn't send bikers. He'd send professionals, PMC squads, mercenaries who didn't leave witnesses. Time to expand the perimeter, Jack said. Caleb grinned. You still have those old claymores stashed in the silo? Some, Jack answered. And I know where to get more. As they mapped new defense lines, Lena posed the question hanging in the air. If Serrano's coming, what's the plan? Jack's voice was firm, deliberate. We don't wait for him to find us. We prepare. We learn his patterns. And when he sends someone, we send them back broken. Caleb's grin widened. Storm's still here, huh? Jack's gaze never left the map. Storm's permanent. The farm wasn't just home anymore. It was a fortress and a warning. 3 weeks after the Grimm sons' collapse, the first probe arrived. It didn't come with roaring engines or flashy intimidation. It came quietly, 2 black SUVs rolling through Ironwood Ridge's main street like they belonged there. No insignias. No obvious weapons. Clean-shaven men in tactical polos and mirrored sunglasses. Professionals. Caleb's drone picked them up before they crossed the town's edge. From his vantage point in the hills, he relayed the feed to Jack's portable terminal. Looks like a recon team. Corporate PMC. Not local muscle. Caleb reported, his tone clipped but calm. Jack watched the footage carefully. The team's movement was precise, their communication silent. They weren't here to start a fight. They were here to measure the battlefield. Let's see how deep they dig, Jack muttered. The men made predictable stops: the diner, the gas station, a hardware store. Casual questions, light pressure, but they were testing boundaries. Asking about the incident with the bikers, asking about Jack by name. Lena watched the feed over Jack's shoulder. They're not even trying to hide their interest. Jack's gaze stayed sharp. They don't have to. This is the first knock on the door. They're here to see if we answer. He quickly flipped through his tactical options. They could scare the team off, but that would just trigger a larger, faster response from Serrano. No, this required patience. This was a chess game. Jack made his decision. We let them look. For now. But we track them, Lena said, already thinking ahead. Jack nodded. Exactly. While the visitors conducted their casual sweep, Caleb tagged their vehicles with magnetic trackers. Lena discreetly captured photos of their faces, cross-referencing them against Jack's old intel networks. By nightfall, they had names. Operatives: David Rourke, former private security, trained in low-visibility extraction. Mark Vale, signals expert, suspected ex-intelligence. Unknown third, possible team lead, no confirmed ID. Caleb sent the file to Jack. You sure you want to let them leave? Yes, Jack said. We let them report back exactly what we want them to. Jack and Lena carefully manipulated the trail, leaking false information. They staged abandoned safe houses, planted decoy supply caches, and seeded old service tunnels to look like they were still in use. If Serrano's people wanted to map Jack's operation, Jack would let them, but he'd control the map. The team left town the next morning, satisfied they had what they needed. They'll tell Serrano what we wanted them to see, Jack said, securing the last of the false intel. And Serrano will make his next move based on bad information. Lena folded her arms. You're setting him up. Jack's response was calm, deliberate. I'm giving him a battlefield I've already built. That evening, Jack sat on the porch, cleaning his rifle under the fading light. The wind stirred the trees, carrying with it the weight of the next confrontation. Caleb's voice broke the silence over the comms. How do you want to play it when Serrano sends the hitters? Jack's answer was immediate. I want them to walk into the storm. Because this time, Jack wasn't just defending his daughter. He was baiting a larger enemy into his perfect trap. Jack Thorne worked through the night, weaving a web of calculated deception. Every step Serrano's operatives had taken in Ironwood Ridge was a path Jack had designed for them to follow. And now, he needed to make those trails convincing enough to lure in the next wave. He staged false supply lines using abandoned farm equipment. He rigged fake weapon stashes in decrepit barns, planting worn crates filled with scrap metal and old ammo casings to sell the illusion of a larger militia. He even laid out carefully aged documents that suggested Jack was organizing a rural defense network with other veterans across the county. None of it was real, but it looked real enough. Caleb's voice crackled through the comms as he watched from a mobile overwatch position in the hills. I've never seen you build a battlefield like this, Jack. You're practically writing their after-action report for them. That's the idea, Jack replied, securing a set of infrared markers that would feed false heat signatures to any drone sweeps. We control what they see. We control what they fear. Lena, now Jack's full tactical partner, carefully aligned a portable drone jammer in a tree hollow. Won't they figure out its bait? They might, Jack said, tightening the last cable. But by then, they'll be too far inside to pull back. They monitored Serrano's chatter carefully. 3 days after the first probe, satellite pings and intercepted comms confirmed that a follow-up team was inbound. Heavier, better armed. A tactical hit squad. These weren't street-level bikers. These were contractors, ex-military with clean files and dirtier histories. Caleb's tone sharpened as he watched the encrypted feeds. Jack, you're about to get their serious attention. They've got vehicle-mounted drones, suppression teams, and probably a quick extraction route planned. Good, Jack said, studying the map. Let's give them a reason to commit. The incoming team's movements confirmed their aggression. They weren't coming to ask questions. They were coming to eliminate the problem. Jack knew the risk. If the deception wasn't perfect, they'd level the area. But if he controlled their approach, he could fracture their assault teams and neutralize them in pieces. He set the first real trap near an abandoned cattle yard. A false armory inside. Explosives hidden in the fence posts. Choke points layered with vehicle traps. Lena surveyed the setup. Feels like we're daring them to bite. We are, Jack said. I want them overconfident. They'll think they're walking into a messy militia camp. They won't realize the whole field is wired to collapse on them. Caleb's report came in. Their convoys 2 clicks out. For tactical SUVs. 2 drone escorts. Jack activated a secondary jammer net to cut their surveillance once they entered the first funnel. Positions, Jack ordered. Caleb settled into his high ground. Lena took her assigned flanking route with a scoped carbine. Jack moved into the shadows, calm, measured, ready. The convoy entered the kill zone right on schedule. Jack's finger hovered over the remote detonator. Let's begin. The convoy's headlights sliced through the dusk as the 4 SUVs rumbled into the abandoned cattle yard. Dust billowed around rusted fencing and overgrown grass, masking the subtle but deadly traps laid beneath. Jack watched from a concealed vantage point, the remote detonator resting lightly beneath his thumb. Caleb's Overwatch feed streamed in his earpiece, silent but sharp, picking up the enemy's movements. The lead vehicle crept forward, wheels crunching over concealed caltrops and razor-sharp stakes hidden under thin layers of dirt and gravel. Tires hissed, the front SUV stalled, and a tense flurry erupted from inside as the occupants scrambled to assess damage. Lena's voice cut in softly, engaging suppressive fire. 2 down in the passenger seat. From her flanking position, Lena's scoped rifle delivered 2 precise shots, neutralizing the gunner and the driver of the second SUV before they could react. Caleb's suppressed rounds echoed from the ridge, targeting the rear escort drones, bringing 1 down in a fiery spiral. Jack pressed the detonator. The first charge ignited beneath the second SUV's chassis, ripping through the undercarriage and immobilizing it instantly. Chaos erupted. The remaining SUVs slammed their brakes, tires spinning as the drivers attempted to reposition. Jack moved with the fluidity of a ghost, silent, efficient. He deployed a smoke grenade to obscure the field and followed with a carefully aimed flashbang that burst near the enemy's command vehicle, disorienting their crew. Amidst the confusion, Jack and Lena coordinated. Jack disabled the rear flankers with non-lethal rounds, using his superior tactical knowledge to avoid unnecessary fatalities, while Lena provided sniper cover, dropping any enemy attempting to regroup or flank. Caleb relayed intel on enemy movements, guiding Jack's approach. The attackers tried to organize a counterattack, but every escape route was funneled into Jack's kill zones. Their radio chatter became frantic, uncoordinated. Jack's voice was calm over the calm. You're trapped. Surrender now, and you walk away. One of the enemy commanders snarled into his radio, no surrender. Engage with lethal force. Jack's reply was clinical. Your choice. With surgical precision, Jack incapacitated the remaining combatants one by one, using suppressed shots and close-quarter combat where necessary. By the time local law enforcement arrived, alerted by Caleb's earlier calls, the tactical squad was either restrained or incapacitated. Lena approached Jack, eyes bright but steady. This was no biker gang. No, Jack agreed. This was Serrano's hand. Professional, cold, efficient. Caleb joined them, checking their gear. This sends a message. Jack nodded. It tells Serrano that Ironwood Ridge isn't a soft target. The night fell heavy around them, but the storm that Jack had promised was well underway, and it was only growing. With Serrano's tactical squad neutralized, Jack knew the conflict was escalating beyond Ironwood Ridge's borders. The threat had grown from local bikers to a well-funded mercenary operation with deep pockets and international reach. Jack's comm was tactical, not complacent. He initiated calls to old contacts, men and women who once operated in shadows, veterans who had seen wars Jack had only read about. The ghosts of his past, now his allies. First was Mara Steele, an ex-CIA operative who specialized in signals intelligence and cyber warfare. Quiet but deadly, Mara had the ability to track enemies through the darkest corners of the web and disrupt their communications with surgical precision. Next, Reggie Hawkins, a former Army Ranger sniper, master of long-range reconnaissance and precision elimination. Hawk's reputation for disappearing into hostile territory and returning unscathed was legendary. Finally, Sarah Lynn, a former Navy EOD specialist turned tactical medic. Calm under pressure, she could handle anything from improvised explosive devices to battlefield triage. Jack convened the team at his farm, transforming the barn into a temporary operations center. The map of Ironwood Ridge and surrounding counties was spread wide, dotted with strategic markers and intel gathered from recent encounters. Grim was just the opening act, Jack said, voice steady but serious. Serrano's the main event, and he's bringing heavy hitters. Mara tapped the tablet, displaying intercepted chatter. Serrano's moving more resources into the region, likely to set up logistics hubs. Their comms are encrypted but consistent, indicative of an impending large-scale operation. Hawk added, we can intercept convoys, disrupt supply chains, and hit them before they get comfortable. Sarah spoke calmly. We need to be ready for casualties. This isn't a game anymore. Jack nodded, absorbing each report. We're outnumbered and outgunned, Jack admitted. But we have the advantage of home turf, preparation, and most importantly, the element of surprise. Lena, now fully immersed, stood by Jack's side. We'll need to coordinate local support. Farmers, shopkeepers, anyone willing to keep eyes and ears. Mara smiled slightly. And I'll work on hacking into Serrano's logistics. If we can disrupt his supply lines before his men arrive, it'll buy us time. Hawk surveyed the terrain maps. I'll train locals in basic recon and mark safe zones. Sarah added, I'll set up a field medic station and organize evacuation routes. Jack turned to his team, eyes burning with resolve. This isn't just about protecting a farm or a town anymore. It's about stopping a rising threat before it swallows everything. He paused, then said, we fight smart, coordinated, and without mercy. As night settled over Ironwood Ridge, the small team prepared for a war they knew would test every skill they had. Because the next battle wouldn't be fought alone. It would be a full-scale siege. The days blurred into a whirlwind of preparation. Jack's farm transformed from a quiet homestead into a strategic command post. The barn walls were lined with maps, drones hovered overhead, and radios buzzed continuously with coded chatter. Jack worked alongside Mara, hacking and intercepting Serrano's communications, feeding false intel to confuse their logistics. Hawk trained a small cadre of local volunteers in surveillance and marksmanship, turning farmers and shopkeepers into an informal militia. Sarah converted the old barn's back room into a triage center, stockpiling medical supplies and training first responders. Lena, once the farmer's daughter, now took charge of coordinating the neighborhood watch and logistics. Her transformation from civilian to tactician was clear in every deliberate move. Jack stood overlooking the ridge one evening, binoculars sweeping the horizon. The distant hum of engines and faint headlights told him Serrano's forces were mobilizing. Mara approached, tablet in hand. We've identified multiple convoys heading toward Ironwood Ridge, heavy equipment, mercenary reinforcements, and possibly contractors. Jack's eyes narrowed. Their timeline is tightening. They're moving fast. Hawk added from the training grounds. Our scouts report increased enemy patrols near the county line. They're probing our defenses. Sarah checked her medical packs. If they breach, we'll be ready to treat wounds and evacuate. Jack nodded. Good. Let's keep it tight. We need to channel their advance into kill zones we control. The plan was meticulous. Ambush points at narrow roads and bridges. Electronic jamming zones to disrupt enemy comms. Sniper overwatch from hidden ridges. Decoy camps to draw fire and waste resources. Rapid medical extraction routes. Jack gathered the team for a final briefing. This is more than defense. It's a siege. Serrano wants us broken, but we hold the advantage. Knowledge, terrain, and unity. Lena's voice carried the same steel as her father's. We fight smart, watch each other's backs, and never let them feel comfortable. Mara's fingers danced over her keyboard, sending last-minute cyber disruptions. I'm scrambling their drones and cutting off their supply comms. Hawk loaded his rifle. They'll never see us coming. Sarah checked the medical kits again. We're ready. Jack looked each of them in the eye. This ends on our terms. As night fell, Ironwood Ridge braced for the storm. The battle for their home was about to begin. The pre-dawn darkness blanketed Ironwood Ridge as a tense silence gripped the landscape. The only sounds were the distant hum of engines, Serrano's mercenary convoy weaving its way cautiously along the winding ridge road. Jack Thorne's team lay in wait, shadows hidden among dense underbrush and rocky outcrops, every sense alert. Hawk was perched high on a ridge, his rifle trained through the scope on the lead vehicle. Beside him, Mara's portable jammer crackled quietly, feeding distorted signals that scrambled the enemy's communications. The convoy's radios sputtered with interference. Command was fractured. Jack's voice cut through the comms with sharp authority. "Hold fire. Engage only on my mark. Patience is our weapon." The convoy rumbled forward, unaware they were entering a carefully prepared kill zone. Hidden beneath loose gravel and dirt were razor-sharp caltrops and improvised spike traps, laid by Jack's team in the dead of night. The first vehicle's tires shredded with a sickening crunch, causing it to veer wildly before crashing into the roadside embankment. Panic spread quickly. With swift precision, Jack pressed the remote detonator. Explosions rocked the narrow passage as charges buried beneath the road's surface erupted, ripping through the front and rear of the convoy. Flames bloomed instantly, consuming engines and igniting fuel tanks. The narrow road, hemmed in by steep cliffs and thick forest, became a deadly funnel. From their concealed positions, Lena and Hawk unleashed a synchronized volley of fire. Bullets tore through exposed windows and punctured armored panels. Serrano's men scrambled, disoriented and trapped, their superior firepower hampered by limited mobility. Caleb's voice relayed vital intel. Enemy attempting to flank left. 2 squads moving to regroup behind tree line. Watch your sectors. Jack shifted position, moving methodically between cover to disable weapon systems and capture fleeing enemies when possible. His movements were fluid, his tactics honed from decades of combat. Nearby, Sarah moved with calm efficiency, administering aid to injured civilians caught in the crossfire and evacuating those in immediate danger. Her presence kept morale steady, a reminder that the fight wasn't just for land but for lives. Hours passed with brutal intensity. Serrano's forces fought desperately, but the combination of terrain advantage, precise strikes, and coordinated teamwork steadily broke their resolve. When the last vehicle limped out of the kill zone, the battlefield fell eerily silent except for crackling flames and distant sirens. Jack surveyed the scorched earth, the shattered vehicles, and the fallen combatants. His voice, though quiet, carried the weight of hard-earned victory. This is just the beginning. The dust had barely settled from the ambush in the cattle yard when Serrano's network sprang into action. The mercenary commander was not one to tolerate defeat lightly. Jack knew that the reprisal would come swift and merciless. Inside the barn, now a buzzing nerve center of activity, Jack convened his team. The atmosphere was taut with urgency and steely resolve. "Mara, what's the latest on their reinforcements?" Jack asked, eyes scanning the encrypted chatter cascading down her tablet. Mara's fingers flew across the screen. "They're mobilizing a task force twice the size of their last assault. Armored vehicles, tactical drones, and ex-special forces operators from out of state. They've clearly escalated." Hawk loaded a fresh magazine into his rifle, the quiet click echoing like a heartbeat. "They're coming in hot. We'll need to tighten our defenses and expand the kill zones. This time, there won't be room for mistakes." Sarah was already organizing medical supplies. "With the increase in firepower, we have to prepare for more casualties. Field triage will be critical." Lena stood beside Jack, her tactical demeanor now fully formed. "I've coordinated local volunteers to reinforce early warning posts along all major approaches. We're setting up overlapping observation sectors." Jack nodded. "Good. But we can't wait for them to hit us again. We have to take the initiative, disrupt their command, and supply infrastructure before they regroup." Caleb brought up maps highlighting Serrano's supply lines and suspected logistics hubs outside Ironwood Ridge. "Here," he said, pointing to a cluster of warehouses 2 counties away. "This is where they're stockpiling fuel and ammo." Jack traced the route with his finger. "If we cripple their supplies, we cripple their ability to wage war here." The plan was clear: conduct a series of surgical night raids targeting Serrano's logistical support, fuel depots, armories, and vehicle maintenance yards. The goal was maximum disruption with minimal exposure. Under cover of darkness, Jack's team struck with precision. Mara jammed communications to blind security systems. Hawk and Caleb handled reconnaissance and perimeter security, while Lena and Sarah ensured swift infiltration and quick extraction. They blew fuel tanks, sabotaged vehicles, and shredded supply caches. Each hit was calculated to send a message: Serrano's reach had limits. Despite the risk and the constant pressure, Jack's team leveraged their knowledge of the terrain and guerrilla tactics to outmaneuver Serrano's better-equipped forces. They moved like shadows, silent, deadly, and elusive. Back at the farm, Jack addressed his team, voice low but resolute. This war isn't about who has more guns or muscle. It's about willpower, strategy, and seizing the fight on our terms. Every strike we make weakens them and strengthens us. As Serrano's forces scrambled to regroup and resupply, Jack's counterstrike had shifted the battlefield. The predator was now the hunted. The fight was far from over, but Jack had made one thing clear. Ironwood Ridge was no easy target. The weeks after the brutal counterstrike were marked by a tense stalemate. Serrano's forces, once confident and aggressive, were now fractured and cautious. Their supply lines were disrupted, their ranks thinned by precision strikes and well-laid traps. The once feared mercenary army had become hesitant, wary of the lethal defense Ironwood Ridge had become. Jack Thorne stood in the barn that had become their war room, the air thick with quiet determination. Maps littered the table, marked with enemy remnants, safe zones, and new intelligence reports. The farm was no longer just a home. It was the command center for a community hardened by conflict and united in purpose. Mara Steele tapped the screen, bringing up intercepted communications. Serrano's grip on the region is slipping. His backers are starting to question the cost, but his desperation grows. He's likely to resort to low-level tactics, hit-and-run attacks, targeting civilians to sow fear. Hawk Hawkins adjusted his rifle sling, his voice low and steady. They'll try to break our spirit. Target the soft spots, families, unarmed locals. That's where they think they can force us into mistakes. Sarah Lynn, ever vigilant, added. That's why our medical teams and evacuation plans remain fully operational. We're prepared for anything. Lena, now a tactical leader in her own right, crossed her arms and said, We've trained locals on early warning systems, fortified shelters, and communication protocols. The town is ready to defend itself at every level. Jack surveyed his team, pride tempered with a soldier's sobriety. This isn't just a battle. It's a war of attrition, a test of endurance. Serrano may come at us in new ways, but we're not just fighting for land or resources. We're fighting for our lives and our community. He looked out toward the horizon, the fading light casting long shadows across the farm. To anyone who thinks Ironwood Ridge is an easy target, this is your warning. We will not back down. We will outthink you. We will endure. Jack's eyes hardened with the resolve forged over decades. This was more than survival. It was legacy. The legacy of a lethal ex-Marine who had transformed from a quiet farmer into a tactical guardian, protecting everything he loved with unyielding determination. The farm returned to its quieter rhythm, but the vigilance never faded. The storm had passed, for now, but the sky remained watchful. Jack knew the fight would never truly end. There would always be threats lurking beyond the trees, waiting for a crack in the defense. But he was ready, and so was Ironwood Ridge. Thank you for following this story. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and share your thoughts below. Where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments. Stay tuned for more immersive tactical stories.